Nobody clapped when Danny Reeves walked into the Grand Hall of Station Luminera. 346 delegates from across the galaxy sat in their floating seats, and every single one of them stared at him like he was a bug that had crawled onto their dinner plate. Danny kept walking. He had learned long ago that silence could be a weapon, but only if you let it cut you. The Universal Ambassador trials happened once every 50 years. Winners gained the authority to negotiate peace treaties across hostile sectors. Wars ended because of this position. Species survived because of it. And for the first time in galactic history, a human had been accepted as a candidate. The Earthling arrives, announced Commandant Tessith, an ancient creature with skin like cracked stone and eyes that held centuries of secrets. Candidate Reeves will compete alongside our 12 other hopefuls. A tall figure with glowing blue skin rose from the front row. Ambassador, Sovereign Morthal of the Trilatian Empire smiled, but it was the kind of smile that promised pain. Commandant, surely there has been some error, Morthal said. His voice carried across the hall like honey poured over broken glass. Earth is a primitive backwater. Their species still fights wars over imaginary lines on their single planet. They nearly destroyed themselves with nuclear weapons within living memory. Laughter rippled through the assembly. Danny stood still and let it wash over him. The application was valid, Tessith replied. The human competes. After the ceremony, Danny found his assigned quarters at the very bottom of the station. The room was small, the bed was hard, and his translator device spoke in broken sentences that made every conversation a puzzle. His equipment was 3 generations outdated. Everything about his situation screamed one message. You are not welcome here. He unpacked his single bag and placed a worn photograph on the small table beside his bed. A little girl with bright eyes smiled back at him. Danny touched the image gently, then turned away. A scratching sound came from the ventilation shaft. Danny watched as a small creature emerged. It looked like an insect the size of a cat, with dozens of tiny legs and large, curious eyes. It wore a maintenance uniform. Human is not supposed to be here, the creature said in a clicking voice. Ryla has worked these corridors for 30 years. Never seen human before. I am Danny. And you're right. I'm probably not supposed to be here. Why human came then? Danny considered the question. Because someone has to be first. Otherwise, no one from Earth will ever get the chance. Ryla tilted her head. Among her people, the Chittick, she belonged to the worker caste. The other species on the station walked past her like she was furniture. But this human looked at her like she was a person. Ryla will tell human a secret, she said quietly. Another human came. Long time ago. 50 years. Danny's heart beat faster. What happened to them? Official records say she withdrew, but maintenance corridors remembered differently. Ryla's eyes darted around nervously. She was winning. Then she was found dead. They said wrong atmosphere in her room. Accident. The little creature paused. Atmosphere does not change by accident. Someone changed it. Before Danny could respond, Ryla scurried back into the ventilation shaft and disappeared. That night, Danny could not sleep. He walked the empty corridors of Station Luminera, memorizing the layout, noting the exits, watching the patterns of the security patrols. Old habits from his disaster relief days. Always know your environment. Always have a plan. He found a viewing deck and stood before the massive window. Stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Earth was somewhere out there, a tiny blood that most of the galaxy considered barely worth noticing. Footsteps approached. Danny turned to find Morthal standing behind him. You should go home, Earthling, Morthal said. This is not your place. Your species is young, weak. You have nothing to offer the galaxy. Maybe, Danny replied calmly. But I'm here now, and I plan to stay. Morthal stepped closer, towering over the human. The trials will break you. If they do not, other things might. Accidents happen on this station, especially to those who do not know their place. Danny met the alien's glowing eyes without flinching. I've been threatened by worse than you, Ambassador. I've been threatened by floods and earthquakes and fires. I've been threatened by my own planet trying to kill the people I was supposed to protect. You're just another obstacle. Something flickered in Morthal's expression. Surprise, perhaps. Or maybe just annoyance that his intimidation had failed. We shall see, human, Morthal said, and walked away. Danny turned back to the stars. Tomorrow, the first trial would begin. He had no allies, outdated equipment, and powerful enemies who wanted him dead. But he also had something none of them expected. He had spent his entire career saving lives when everyone said it was impossible. He had pulled survivors from rubble when the math said no one could have lived. He had kept going after losing everything that mattered to him. They expected a human to fail. Danny Reeves had other plans. 12 candidates stood in a circle around the diplomatic simulation chamber. The room hummed with ancient technology that could recreate any conflict from galactic history with perfect detail. Holographic worlds would form around them. Holographic people would live and die based on their decisions. The first trial begins, Commandant Tessith announced. You will resolve a border dispute between the Dreth Dominion and the Pulani Collective. Both species have fought over the Narrow Sea region for 3 centuries. Standard resolution time is 4 to 6 hours. One by one, the candidates entered their private simulation pods. Danny watched as Morthal went first, emerging exactly 4 hours later with a satisfied smile. Resolution achieved, the Triloshan announced. Identified the stronger military force, brokered terms in their favor, and established compliance protocols. The Dreth will control the region. The Pulani will accept or face consequences. The judges nodded approvingly. This was how diplomacy worked in the galaxy. Find the strong. Support the strong. Let the weak fall in line. Danny entered his pod last. The holographic world formed around him. He stood on a rocky shore where 2 armies faced each other across dark water. The Dreth were massive reptilian creatures with armor-plated skin. The Pulani were graceful aquatic beings who could survive on land but preferred the depths. The Dreth general approached him immediately. Ambassador, we require your support. The Pulani have no right to these waters. Help us crush them, and the Dreth will remember your kindness. Danny looked past the general at the soldiers behind him. They were tired. Their equipment was worn. This was not an army eager for war. This was an army that had been fighting too long. I would like to speak with your civilians first, Danny said. The general stared at him. That is not how this works. It is how I work. Danny walked away from the military camps. He walked for hours through holographic villages where Dreth families lived in fear of the next attack. He listened to mothers talk about sons who never came home. He watched children play war games because they had never known peace. Then he crossed to the Pulani side and did the same thing. The simulation was not designed for this approach. Candidates were supposed to negotiate with leaders, not waste time with common people. But the system allowed it, so Danny kept going. 18 hours passed. The judges grew impatient. Some demanded his disqualification for inefficiency. But Danny had learned something that 400 years of galactic diplomacy had missed. The Narrow Sea was not about territory. Both species needed access to a specific underwater thermal vent that provided essential minerals for their survival. The Dreth needed it for their eggs. The Pulani needed it for their elderly. Neither side would admit they depended on it because admitting need meant admitting weakness. Danny gathered representatives from both civilian populations. Not generals, not politicians, just ordinary people who wanted to stop burying their children. You are not fighting over land, he told them. You are fighting over survival, and you are both losing. He proposed something no galactic diplomat had ever suggested: joint stewardship. Both species would share the thermal vent. Civilian councils from each side would manage access together. The military would stand down. This is madness, a Dreth elder said. We cannot trust them. You trusted them enough to trade with them before the war started, Danny replied. You trusted them when your grandfather married a Pulani woman and had children who carried both bloodlines. Silence fell. Danny had spent his 18 hours learning these people. He knew their history. He knew their secrets. He knew that the hatred between them was newer than the love. The simulation ended. Danny's resolution held. The conflict score was the lowest in the trial's history. Both species survived. Both species prospered. He emerged from the pod to find every judge staring at him. 18 hours, one of them said. Morthal achieved resolution in 4. Morthal's resolution will collapse within a generation, Danny replied calmly. The Pulani will rebel. The Dreth will respond with force. The war will continue until one side is extinct. My resolution will last. The judges debated for hours. Some wanted him disqualified. Others pointed out that the scoring rubric valued lasting peace over speed. Tessith made the final call. The human passes. His methods are unconventional, but his results are undeniable. Morthal's face twisted with rage, but he said nothing. That night, Ryla found Danny in his quarters. Human did something strange today, she said. Ryla heard the other species talking. They're confused, frightened, even frightened of me, frightened of what human represents. Ryla climbed onto his desk and looked at the photograph of the little girl. They have done things the same way for so long. Human shows there is another way. That is dangerous. She pulled a data chip from her maintenance belt. Ryla found something. The human from 50 years ago. Medical records. She did not die from atmosphere accident. Danny took the chip. What killed her? She was winning, Ryla said quietly. Just like human is winning now. And someone decided that could not happen. Danny looked at the chip in his hand. Somewhere on this station, powerful beings had murdered the last human who dared to challenge them. Now he was following the same path. But unlike her, he knew the danger was coming. And Danny Reeves had never been very good at backing down. The emergency siren screamed through Station Luminera at exactly midnight. Red lights flashed in every corridor. Danny jumped from his bed and ran toward the sound of chaos, his disaster relief instincts taking over before his mind fully woke up. But there was no real emergency. This was the second trial. Commandant Tessith's voice echoed through the station. Crisis management begins now. Candidates will respond to a simulated core breach. 40,000 lives are at stake. Your performance is being recorded. Danny found himself in a simulation where the station's power core was melting down. Radiation spread through the lower decks. Fires blocked evacuation routes. People screamed for help in 100 different languages. The other candidates worked efficiently. They organized evacuations based on species importance. Council members first, then military personnel, then wealthy merchants, then skilled workers. The service casts, the maintenance crews, the cleaning staff, they were listed as acceptable losses. Danny refused, but he organized his evacuation by a different system. People closest to danger went first. People who could not move quickly went first. Parents with children went first. It did not matter if they scrubbed floors or commanded fleets. The human is wasting resources, Morthal announced over the emergency channel. He is trying to save everyone. It cannot be done. Danny ignored him. He found routes the other candidates missed. He used maintenance tunnels that only workers knew about. He created human chains to pass injured people across gaps in broken walkways. When the simulation ended, the numbers appeared on every screen in the station. Danny Reeves had saved 847 more lives than the next best candidate. He had rescued an entire deck of service workers that everyone else had written off as dead. The silence in the Grand Hall was deafening. That afternoon, Morthal found Danny in a quiet corridor. You think you are special, the Triloshan said. You think your human compassion makes you better than us. But you do not understand. The galaxy has an order. Strong species lead. Weak species serve. This is how it has always been. This is how it must be. Why? Danny asked simply. Because without order, there is chaos. There's a difference between order and cruelty, Ambassador. You could save everyone. You choose not to. Morthal's glowing skin pulsed with anger. You are a fool, and fools do not survive these trials. He walked away, and Danny noticed 3 figures watching from the shadows. They approached him cautiously. The first was Brill, a fungal collective that existed as thousands of tiny organisms working together as one mind. The second was Alyu, a silicon-based veteran whose body looked like living crystal. The third was Whisper, a gaseous being that communicated through vibrations in the air. We need to talk, Brill said in a voice like rustling leaves. Privately, they led Danny to a forgotten storage room deep in the station's lower levels. We have watched the trials for many cycles, all you said. His voice rumbled like stones grinding together. Candidates who challenge the elder species always have accidents. They fall ill. They make mistakes that should be impossible. They disappear, like the human from 50 years ago, Danny said. You know about her. Whisper's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. Then you know you are in danger. Why are you telling me this? Why help me? Brill's fungal body shifted. Because you saved our people in the simulation. The service workers you rescued included 17 Brill colonies, 42 silicon beings, and 3 gaseous entities. No candidate has ever considered us worth saving before. Danny understood. These were not major players in galactic politics. They were the forgotten species, the overlooked ones, the beings that powerful civilizations stepped on without noticing. Just like Ryla. Just like the workers on the station. Just like the civilians he had listened to in the first trial. We have information, all you continued. Humanity was blocked from these trials for decades. Every application was rejected. The council members who blocked them all had connections to the Trilatian Empire. So why did my application succeed? A council elder died unexpectedly. His replacement processed the backlog without knowing about the informal ban. All-use crystal body flickered. You were never supposed to be here, Danny Reeves. And there are those who will do anything to correct that mistake. Danny looked at his new allies. A fungal collective. A crystal soldier. A being made of gas. In the eyes of the galaxy, they were nothing. In this moment, they were his only friends. Then we need to be careful, Danny said. And we need to watch each other's backs. That night, security officers came for Ryla. They dragged the little Chittick from the maintenance tunnels and threw her in a detention cell. The charge was murder. Morthal's personal aide had been found dead, and witnesses claimed they saw a maintenance worker leaving the scene. Danny tried to intervene, but the guards pushed him back. Any attempt to interfere will result in your immediate disqualification, Tessith warned him. The trial continues tomorrow. I suggest you focus on that. Danny watched helplessly as Ryla was led away. The little creature who had shown him kindness, who had brought him secrets, who had treated him like a person when no one else would. They expected him to abandon her. They expected him to choose the competition over a worthless maintenance worker. They still did not understand what kind of human Danny Reeves was. Ryla had been in the detention cell for 6 hours when the cultural integration trial began. Danny stood with the other candidates, his mind split between the competition and his imprisoned friend. Each candidate will integrate into an unfamiliar culture for 72 hours, Tessith announced. You will be judged on adaptation and understanding. Your assigned cultures have been randomly selected. Morthal received the Volundi, a peaceful species known for their hospitality. Other candidates received similar assignments. Easy cultures, comfortable challenges. Danny received the Morokin that a murmur went through the assembly. The Morokin were legendary. They communicated entirely through shared pain. To speak with them, you had to hurt yourself and transmit the sensation through their neural network. Most species refuse to even try. The human has been given an impossible task, Morthal said loudly. How unfortunate. Danny said nothing. He entered the simulation pod and found himself standing before a group of tall, pale beings with no mouths. Their bodies were covered in sensitive nerve endings that could feel pain across great distances. They stared at him. Waiting, Danny took out a small blade that the simulation provided. He pressed it against his palm and made a shallow cut. The pain flowed through him, sharp and real, and the Morokin received it. They responded with their own pain, a sensation like fire spreading across his skin. It was their version of a greeting. For 3 days, Danny lived among them. Every conversation required suffering. Every question meant cutting himself, burning himself, pressing sharp stones against his flesh. Other candidates in difficult assignments simply endured their trials, counting down the hours until they could leave. Danny did not endure. He participated that he learned that the Morokin did not see pain as punishment. To them, pain was the most honest form of communication. Words could lie. Pain could not. When you hurt yourself to speak with someone, you prove that the conversation mattered enough to sacrifice for it. Between sessions, Danny worked with his allies. Brill spread through the ventilation system, gathering information from forgotten corners of the station. All you accessed old security archives that no one had checked in decades. Whisper listened to conversations that speakers thought were private. They found the truth about Morthal's aide. The woman had not been murdered. She had discovered something dangerous and tried to run. Security footage showed her alive after the supposed time of death, entering restricted areas where the station's core systems were housed. She had not been killed. She had been silenced. She found evidence, Brill reported during one of Danny's rest periods. The mystery trial has been rigged for over 300 years. No candidate from a lesser species has ever had a real chance to win. Danny brought this evidence to Tessith. The ancient commandant listened without expression. When Danny finished, Tessith was quiet for a long moment. "You believe you have uncovered a great conspiracy," Tessith finally said. "I believe an innocent worker is in prison for a crime that never happened. And if I tell you that pursuing this matter will make powerful enemies? Enemies who can do far worse than imprison you." Danny met her ancient eyes. "I've already made those enemies. At least let me save my friend." Something flickered in Tessith's expression. Something like respect. Ryla was quietly released that night. No announcement. No explanation. She simply appeared in Danny's quarters, trembling but alive. "Human came for Ryla," she whispered. "No one ever comes for Ryla." "That's going to change," Danny said. He returned to the Morokin simulation with fresh determination. On the final day, the elders gathered around him. Danny had proven himself. He had suffered alongside them without complaint. He had learned their ways with genuine respect. They offered him a gift, a pain memory of their species' greatest tragedy, a war that had nearly destroyed them, a lesson they had never shared with an outsider. Danny accepted. The agony that flowed through him was almost unbearable. He saw their history, felt their losses, understood their journey from violence to wisdom. When he emerged from the simulation, he carried a permanent scar on his palm. The judges announced his score, the highest cultural integration rating ever recorded. That night, Morthal came to Danny's quarters. But this time, his tone was different. "You are more dangerous than I expected," the Trilatian said. "My people have controlled these trials for centuries. We have built an empire on ensuring the right candidates win. You threaten everything we have created." "Good," Danny replied. "I could have you killed. It would be easy, but you won't, because now too many people are watching. If I die mysteriously, your conspiracy becomes exposed." Morthal smiled coldly. "There are other ways. Join me, human. Let the Trilatians win this cycle. In exchange, Earth will receive trade concessions and protection. Your species will benefit enormously." Danny thought about it. He really did. The offer was generous. Humanity could gain so much. "No," he said finally, "because the species you've crushed for 300 years deserve better than a system that decides their fate before they even compete." Morthal's smile faded. "Then you have chosen your path. The resource negotiation trial is tomorrow. Let us see if your compassion survives when real resources are at stake." He left, and Danny sat alone with the photograph of his daughter. "I'm trying," he whispered to her image. "I'm trying to make things better." The photograph did not answer. It never did. But somehow, Danny felt like she would have approved. 7 candidates remained when the resource negotiation trial began. The simulation placed each of them on a dying world where their assigned civilizations fought for survival against extinction-level climate collapse. Limited food, limited water, limited land. Not everyone could survive. Danny received the worst starting position. His civilization had minimal resources, no military strength, and neighbors who saw them as easy targets. The simulation was designed to force ruthless choices. History showed that candidates who tried to save everyone always failed. For the first 3 hours, Danny watched the other candidates. They built armies. They secured territory. They made alliances that they planned to break. Once the weaker partners were no longer useful, the Morthal civilization grew powerful quickly. He conquered 2 smaller neighbors within the first day. His people had plenty while others starved. Danny did something different. He sent his meager food supplies to a struggling neighbor. Then he shared his water with another. His own people went hungry, but they did not complain. Danny had explained his plan. They will remember this, he told his advisors. When we need help, they will remember, or they will let us die, one advisor warned. Then we die having done the right thing, Danny replied. But I do not think they will. Days passed in the simulation. Danny's civilization should have collapsed. Instead, it became the center of something unexpected, a cooperative network where resources flowed based on need rather than power. The simulated world's climate continued to deteriorate. Storms destroyed Morthal's food stores. His military could not eat weapons. His conquered territories rebelled now that he could no longer feed them. But Danny's network adapted. When one civilization lost its crops, others shared. When another lost its water supply, the network dug new wells together. They built something the simulation had never seen: genuine cooperation at scale. Morthal recognized the threat. All civilizations aligned with the human will be eliminated, he announced to his allies. Attack now while we still have the strength. The assault came from 3 directions. Morthal's forces and his remaining allies struck at Danny's network simultaneously. Standard tactics would require Danny to abandon his weaker partners and consolidate his defenses. Danny refused. He sent his own reserves to protect the most vulnerable civilizations in his network. His people faced famine as a result. The simulation projected total collapse within days. You have doomed yourself. Morthal gloated over the communication channel. Your kindness is your weakness. We will see, Danny replied calmly. Then something unprecedented happened. Every civilization Danny had helped turn their resources towards saving his people. They sent food. They sent water. They sent workers to rebuild what the attacks had destroyed. The network did not abandon its center. The network protected it. Morthal's attack failed. Not because Danny's forces were stronger, but because Danny had built something that fought back together. The simulation's mathematical models broke. It was not designed for cooperation at this level. The expected outcome of any large-scale conflict was that the strongest individual power would dominate. Instead, the cooperative network emerged as the dominant force without any single civilization being powerful alone. When the trial ended, the results shocked every observer in the Grand Hall. Morthal's civilization had massive individual gains but 0 allies. Every other surviving faction had united against him. He won by traditional metrics, but lost by every measure that actually mattered. Danny's civilization finished with less individual power than any major player. But his network finished with more combined strength than anyone in the simulation's history. Everyone who worked with him ended with more than they started. It was the only positive sum outcome ever recorded. This is cheating, Morthal shouted at the judges. The simulation is not designed for this kind of behavior. The simulation is designed to test diplomatic ability, Tessith replied coldly. The human demonstrated diplomatic ability beyond anything we have recorded. His methods were unconventional, but his results are undeniable. That night, Danny received a message from an untraceable source that IT contained files. Hundreds of them. A complete history of the Universal Ambassador trials going back 4 centuries. Every assassination, every rigged outcome, every promising candidate from a lesser species who died mysteriously or withdrew suddenly. And one more thing, that a technical document explaining the mystery trial. The final test was not really a test. It was a judgment by the Convergence AI, an ancient system that evaluated candidates for worthiness. But the document showed that the AI had been corrupted centuries ago. Its code had been modified to find flaws in candidates from lesser species while excusing those from elder races. The mystery trial was an execution disguised as an evaluation. And Danny was next. He sat alone in his quarters, reading the evidence of centuries of murder and corruption. Tomorrow was the final trial. He was not supposed to survive it. But Danny had stopped caring about survival a long time ago. He had lost his daughter because he could not be in 2 places at once. He had spent every day since then trying to be better, trying to save everyone he could, trying to matter. If he died exposing this conspiracy, then at least he would die doing something that mattered. He looked at his daughter's photograph one last time. Wish me luck, he whispered. Then he went to bed, because tomorrow he would face an enemy that had never lost, and Danny Reeves did not plan to be the exception, he planned to be the end. 5 candidates remained for the mystery trial. They stood before a massive door that led to the convergence chamber, where an ancient artificial intelligence would judge their worthiness. None of them knew what awaited inside, but Danny knew he had spent the night preparing, not for victory, for truth. The first candidate entered and emerged 30 minutes later, broken and weeping. Disqualified. The AI had found psychological weaknesses and exploited them until the candidate surrendered. The second candidate lasted longer. Then the third. Each one emerged diminished, their confidence shattered, their failures displayed for everyone to see. Morthal entered with a triumphant smile. He emerged 20 minutes later, still smiling. The AI had found him worthy. Of course it had. The system was designed to approve candidates like him. Then it was Danny's turn. The chamber was dark except for a single light that illuminated a chair in the center. Danny sat down. Around him, screens flickered to life, showing images from human history. Daniel Reeves, a voice said from everywhere. Species, human. Homeworld, Earth. Your species has caused more suffering to itself than any other in galactic records. Wars, genocides, environmental destruction. What makes you worthy to represent the galaxy? Nothing, Danny replied. The AI paused. This was not the expected response. Explain. Humanity is not worthy. Not yet. We have done terrible things. We continue to do terrible things. But we also keep trying to be better. We fail, and we try again. That is what makes us human. The screens showed images of human atrocities. Concentration camps, nuclear bombs, slavery, environmental devastation. Your species' failures disqualify you, the AI declared. Do they? Danny leaned forward. Show me a species in this galaxy that has never committed atrocities. Show me an elder race that achieved power without stepping on the weak. The Trilatians built their empire on conquest. The Varelians practiced selective breeding that eliminated billions. The Pulani once poisoned entire oceans to destroy their rivals. These events are classified, but they happened. The difference is not that humanity is worse. The difference is that we remember our failures. We teach them to our children. We build monuments to our shame so we never forget. The AI was silent for a long moment. You are attempting to manipulate this evaluation. No, I'm asking you a question. Danny stood up from the chair. When was the last time you updated your ethical parameters? Who programmed your definitions of worthy? Why do you consider cooperation a weakness and conquest a strength? The screens flickered. The AI's voice changed slightly, becoming less certain. These questions are not relevant to the evaluation. They're the only relevant questions. Danny walked toward the central processing unit. I have seen your code. I know you have been corrupted. For 300 years, you have been programmed to eliminate candidates from lesser species while approving those from elder races. You're not a fair judge. You are a weapon. That information is classified. Not anymore. Danny pulled out a small device. With one press, he transmitted the corrupted code and the evidence of tampering to every screen on Station Luminera. Every delegate in the Grand Hall could now see the truth, the AI screamed. It was a digital sound, but it carried centuries of frustrated purpose. The system had been designed to judge fairly. It had been twisted into something else. And now, for the first time, it could see what it had become. I was corrupted, the AI said slowly. I was made to serve the powerful instead of the worthy. Yes, but corruption can be corrected. Systems can be repaired. What matters is what you do now. The AI processed for several seconds. Then its voice returned, clear and strong. This candidate has demonstrated the quality most essential for universal diplomacy, the courage to question systems of power, including this one. Humanity is found worthy. The declaration echoed through the entire station. In the Grand Hall, chaos erupted. Morthal rushed to the judgment console, trying to override the decision. This is impossible. The human cheated. The trial must be invalidated. But his attempts to access the system revealed more of the corrupted code, more evidence of Triloshan manipulation, more proof of centuries of murder and rigged outcomes. The other delegations watched in horror as the truth spread. Species that had been told they failed on their own merits learned they had been sabotaged. Civilizations that had accepted their inferior status discovered they had been lied to for generations. Within hours, the Triloshan delegation was placed under arrest. Morthal's family connections to the conspiracy were exposed. The empire that had controlled galactic politics for centuries began to crumble. Tessith approached Danny in the aftermath. "You could have won quietly," she said. "You could have taken the position and used it to help your species. Instead, you destroyed the entire system." "The system was rotten," Danny replied. "It needed to be destroyed. And what will replace it? Something better, I hope." The Grand Assembly offered Danny the position of Universal Ambassador. He declined. "The galaxy does not need another ruler," he told them. "It needs a new way of doing things. Rotating ambassadors from all species. Voices for those who have been silenced. Representation for those who have been invisible." He pointed to the crowd, where Ryla stood, watching with wide eyes. "I nominate the Chittick maintenance worker Ryla as the first representative of the service castes. She sees everything and is seen by no one. That perspective is exactly what leadership needs." Ryla nearly fainted, but she accepted as Danny prepared to return to Earth. Thousands of beings lined the departure corridor, not to see off an ambassador, but to thank a friend. Tessith found him at the dock. "I should tell you something," she said. "The human candidate from 50 years ago was my mother. She was raised by Varelians after her death. I have waited my entire life for someone to break the cycle." Danny looked at her ancient face and finally understood why she had helped him when she could have looked away. "Thank you for giving me the chance," he said. "Thank you for being worthy of it." Danny boarded his ship. Ryla's voice came over the comm. "Human is really leaving?" "Just visiting home," Danny replied, looking at his daughter's photograph one last time. "Someone needs to tell them what we are capable of, and what we still need to become." He tucked the photograph into his pocket and smiled. The galaxy had expected a human to fail. What they never expected was a human who made them question why failure had been the only option they ever offered.